why do we have to choose between our health or our family's health or our loved one's health and being able to pay our bills the next week or the next month?
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Jasmine Payne-Patterson is a senior state policy strategist for the Economic Policy Institute, and she is here to talk to us about an agenda for a thriving South. Jasmine, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the Valley Labor Report. It's an honor. I was listening as you were speaking, and I come from a faith background, so part of me just wanted to give you some amens, some knocks, some claps, all of it.
Well, I will say that I also come from a very charismatic faith background, no longer active in that sort of faith tradition, but I was raised in a Pentecostal type church, and so I'm sure that some of the rhetoric, some of the rhetorical flourishes come from somewhere. So
The roots.
Well, Jasmine, thanks again for coming on. First, for those who aren't familiar, could you just tell us a little bit about what is Economic Policy Institute? Who are y'all? What do y'all do? What's EARN? And what do you do there?
Yeah, well, thanks. Hey, Adam, good to see you. So EPI is Economic Policy Institute, and basically we are a progressive think tank. I think we like to call ourselves a think and do tank, and we're focused on how to make the economy better for workers. When we say that, we're talking about different policies, whether it be minimum wage, unemployment insurance, just different policies that affect workers and making sure that this economy is actually working for us. So a lot of times we like to think of ourselves as labor's think tank, and I think labor thinks of us as the same way. So while EPI as a whole organization focuses on the federal economy and different federal policy, EARN, which stands for the Economic Analysis and Research Network. A lot of acronyms today. I'm sorry about that. But EARN focuses on state policy, which we know now is more important than ever. So I work on the EARN team, and I'm focused on the South. I'm a senior state policy strategist there. So we're looking at how all of our Southern partners and how we can work together to make sure that we actually are building an economy that works for us as workers.
So we talked earlier in the show with Patricia Todd from Jobs to Move America about the Alabama legislative session, which starts Tuesday. Don't forget, those of you from Alabama, but also other states across the South are already in session right now. So it seemed like a good time to discuss the EARN in the South shared agenda. So could you tell us a little bit what is on this agenda and how could it help everyday people in the South?
So the agenda for a thriving South is the shared agenda that was comprised of our Southern partners. So we work with state partners like Alabama Rise, and kind of like the Alabama Rise is in every state. So I'm in Georgia, so Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, North Carolina Justice Center, et cetera. All of the everything that you can say that's down south. So we're saying, okay, what policies are important for us, or maybe the top priorities for us to think about how we can make sure that our economy actually is working for us and making sure that we're supporting people. And even further into that, which policies do we think are actually movable? So the three policy areas that the four policy areas that we came up with are unemployment insurance, minimum wage, paid leave, and childcare. And all of them kind of work together. And I will say, even though there's not an explicit one for labor, it's because labor is explicit in through it. It's implicit in how we have to rely on labor and work together to make sure these policies get passed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one thing I'm curious about is, all right, so childcare, minimum wage, paid leave, unemployment, why those issues? Why did those issues surface to the top, when you were having conversations with various folks? What was it about those four areas that really resonated with people?
Yeah, well, these are the bills that just kept coming up. Part of it was because of defensive attacks. So we saw these, and I'll start with the defensive and go into the offensive. But there were all these copycat bills everywhere, popping up from different places. So it was just, okay, how do we destroy the unemployment insurance system? So first it's through trying to tie the unemployment insurance, like weeks of duration. So how many weeks you're able to receive unemployment insurance, the unemployment benefit, to the unemployment rate. So we know for many reasons that that's a bad idea. And if you are a worker, if you care about workers, if you care about people, then you understand that trying to tie the unemployment insurance weeks of duration to the unemployment rate is only going to hurt people. It's going to actually probably cause people to be out of the workforce even longer, because maybe they can't get childcare, maybe they don't have access to paid leave, and maybe those are the underlying reasons for why they need unemployment insurance right now and need to have unemployment insurance until they get to that place of a stable job. So that was one of the things. We saw lots of other attacks on unemployment insurance, from talking about UI trust funds. So the UI trust fund is what actually is like, just as you think of unemployment, well, if you think of insurance, more so like kind of like car insurance or something like that, like it's like a whole fund that we can pull into. So if you defund the unemployment insurance trust fund, then you can then have a case for denying claims and everything. It becomes less salient and it becomes less effective. So that was another thing that we saw popping up in different places. And then even these guises to modernize unemployment insurance, and saying like, oh yeah, like we're gonna like try to modernize it because there's so much fraud, there's so much this, there's so much that. And then they would siphon the money away from the trust fund or the benefits to go towards this modernization. So that was a huge problem. We knew that we needed to do something to fix it. And this was popping up in Georgia, this is popping up in West Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. So we're like, let's figure out how we can work together to really say like, we're not going to accept this. This is not okay. So then relatedly, on the offensive side, there are moments of opportunity. So there's kind of this moment where we're like, oh yeah, I think that we can get more of these things passed. And also these things are so important. So I'll start with minimum wage, because it's just always been super important to me to think about how having a very strong wage floor is going to help everybody, because it'll increase the wages in the state, but also just thinking about how you need to set a boundary, like just even a limit of how people can be able to like take care of their families and take care of themselves. So when we think about minimum wage, I could go on and on. So I'm sorry, Adam, if this is too much. Just stop me whenever. But just to be sure, minimum wage was the federal minimum wage hasn't been changed since 2009. So we're talking about how we can look through in different states, and like there's so much I can say about this, like 86 years since it started and how it's still only $7.25, and then Alabama doesn't even have a state minimum wage and how you default to it. Lots of spirals there. So we'll come back to that. But just saying, like, we need to focus on this and make sure that we're boots on the ground and like making sure we're pushing for higher minimum wages. And then it leads into paid leave. And as we're talking about paid leave, I'm talking about paid family leave and paid sick leave. And it's just thinking about like how it should just be a basic human right to be able to care for yourself and your family when you're sick. It's like, what a concept. We need to like take off time to care for a loved one, or to have a baby, or to take care of our elderly parents or ourselves. So, and then, why do we have to choose between our health or our family's health or our loved one's health and being able to pay our bills the next week or the next month? So just talking about that in that respect. And then finally, childcare. You can't get to work if you can't care for your children. You don't know if they're safe. So making sure that there's access to childcare, that it's safe, that it's culturally relevant, and also that the teachers are paid. So if you're thinking about like your own child, you want to make sure that, the people who are taking care of your child every day are also able to take care of themselves. So that's kind of the way that we got to these 4 policies.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. Yeah,
I really appreciate that. And I mean, there was a lot you said that stood out. I mean, as you mentioned, the minimum wage has lagged for decades now and has not kept up with productivity. It certainly hasn't even kept up with inflation. And, childcare is something that I hear about a lot when I'm out in community. It is super expensive. It can be hard to find, especially that quality childcare, like you said, where folks are actually being paid a living wage because, often these facilities are not particularly regulated. There's often, not the standards that we would like to see when we're trusting our children with these folks. And then you're spending hundreds, if not, over $1,000 a month on childcare just to be able to get to work. Right. And these are issues that I think do resonate with a lot of people, regardless of who you voted for in November or if you even voted at all. Most of us are, impacted by these kind of issues. And the last one I'll touch on is the paid leave, because I know there's been some exciting progress happening around the country when it comes to paid leave. And in Alabama, there's, going to be a push to expand paid parental leave for state employees and educators. I think there was a similar bill in Mississippi recently. I guess catch us up there. How are we seeing progress in any of these areas in any states, during this very strange time that we're in?
Yeah. So even across the South, we're seeing some progress, and we need to see more. But there's some hope. So I'll touch on paid leave, and I'll say paid leave is especially important to me right now. I just got off of paid leave. I just had a baby girl, and I just was sitting here, and as I was going back to work, I took 12 weeks of leave, which there's no national paid leave program, for paid parental leave program. And a lot of times I saw this video and people were asking how many weeks do you think there is of paid leave, across the country? And people were like, maybe 8, maybe 16 or something like that. It's no, there's none. It's not a national program. And so it has to happen at the states as we try to continue to push for it at the federal level. But yes, Alabama did have a wonderful bill initially last year. It started off great. It was actually going to be the most progressive in the South. We were so excited. And we're going to have 12 weeks of paid leave, both for the birthing parent and the non-birthing parent. And we were like, okay, this is so good. This is so exciting. And we're going to be expanding this idea of what, family is and loved ones, and just being able to really care for our children. And then it got dwindled down. And we got to the point, even across the South in many states, that 6 weeks sounds good. And it's just whoa, how did we get there? We're at 12, 12 already, just trying to imagine where you are at 12 weeks, only your child is only 3 months old. So imagine having even going back to work when your child is 3 months old, you're bringing this little bitty baby to childcare, to the daycare centers. So I'm thinking about that and thinking about how important it is. I do think that we need to continue to push for it, and we're seeing some progress on it, and we hope to see. I'm excited for this new bill in Alabama. I'm really hoping that we get it across the finish line this year. We were really close last year, and I was just rooting for you all here and trying to figure out how else we could jump in, because it's so important. But even at 6 weeks, just thinking of 6 weeks, if the birthing parent at that time is only being released from the doctor's immediate watch. And that's if you have a pregnancy without a lot of complications. So imagine going to work before that, or having to be without pay before that. You have to pay for diapers, you have to prepare to pay for childcare, all of those different things. And just trying to experience, you're trying to bond with your child. And it's so important for both the mother's health and also the birthing parent's health and the child's health, to make sure that you actually have that time and you're able to do that safely and without fear of being, evicted from your home or not being able to pay your electricity bill, because you need that for babies. They kind of like that stuff. So,
Right.
Yeah, you might need that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say, it's something that is so commonplace in other countries. I mean, the United States really stands out in not providing paid parental leave and paid family leave for folks.
Yep, absolutely. And it's like, it's something, I'm just going to be honest, sinister about that, like, it's like, to not be able to take care of your family, how you'd like to, or even yourself. Like, we don't have like, we're looking at paid sick too. And, there's protections to keep your job, but we lack that ability to for it to actually be paid, so that you can make sure that you can keep your home, keep your car, keep all these other things that help you get back to work, and for you to take care of your family. So it's a huge problem, and it kind of like goes hand in hand with childcare. For those who have children, it's just this important moment where you're just trying to figure out how you take care of your child. And yeah, I will say, like, I've heard all of these things, these rumblings. I've seen data about childcare, but experiencing it myself, I'm just like, wow, this childcare is more expensive than my mortgage. So looking at that and just being like, wow, like, but I really want my child to have safe care. I want her to be taken care of, and make sure that, like, when I get off work, that, like, I don't have to worry about, even while I'm at work, I don't have to worry that something bad is happening to her, but to know, like, oh, she's taken care of. And that's just something that I feel like so many people can relate to. And just like, it's not too much to ask, to want to make sure your family is safe, and that you can pay for and afford this care, and that the teachers are also taken care of too. Like, they're watching your baby, so of course you want to be taken care of. And I could get into the minimum wage stuff as well, but I'll pause there just in case you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. And I think the minimum wage is a good place to wrap it up, and where we are seeing a push, from various states to actually increase the minimum wage and take action when the federal government hasn't.
Yeah. So a lot of states have minimum wage bills right now, but the places that we've really seen traction is when there's collective strength and worker power, like built up worker power. So when we think about the minimum wage, like, it started in 1938, and like, we're looking at this idea that it was like 25 cents in 1938, and it's only 7.25 now, like 86 years later. That's just so wild to me every time I think about it. And in Alabama, it's never been raised. It's never actually even kind of fully been adopted, because Alabama doesn't have its own minimum wage. It kind of just relies on the federal minimum wage. And that's only because there's a federal law, the FLSA, that's saying you have to. So what would happen if that wasn't there? And so just to think, in 86 years, it's never been raised, it's never been touched in Alabama. But there's so much collective power when we see other states moving. So the states that it has been raised in the South is Florida, and it's because they have access to direct democracy, within ballot measures and stuff. You see moments in other states where they also, like Missouri, which was also able to raise their minimum wage because of ballot measures too. And we need to continue those pushes. Like, the times when even the minimum wage was the highest at the federal level was 1968. Like, it was effectively, even though the number is different, it was effectively like what it would be worth, like today would be like $12.50. So that's the highest that it's been. And what's happening in 1968? You have a civil rights movement. You have people organizing together and making sure that they're building their collective power and pushing back. So in this moment, especially now, hearing everything that Jacob was saying earlier, we need to remember that. We need to remember that power that we have together, and to make sure we're binding together to make sure we're pushing back against policies that just don't make sense for us. So we definitely need to think about that. Even in Birmingham, you all had a higher minimum wage in Birmingham for a while that got preempted, which means that basically the state said, hey, no, you have to follow the state's guidance instead of having your own minimum wage as a city. So thinking like this really has to be something that we work together on and push back on, because there's power in our strength, and we can't ever forget that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great place to wrap it up, because ultimately, that's what we preach on this show, is that we need mass engagement. We need mass involvement. everyday people have to be involved in the political process, out in the community, organizing in the workplace, and beyond the workplace. We need the kind of diverse people power that we had from the 30s through the 60s when, as you said, you pointed out, the civil rights movement, the labor movement, the women's movement. We had mass social movements pushing broad demands to make life better for everyday folks. And that's the kind of energy and power and strength and unity that we need moving forward. Jasmine, thank you so much for your time. Was there anything else you wanted to leave us with?
Thank you. I just want to say, just building off of what Jacob said earlier, this moment really is meant to divide us and to confuse us. But we have to remember, and I just feel like it's like particularly salient looking at this background here, that they buried us because they didn't know that we were seeds. So we really have to be the seeds right now, whether we're a mustard seed growing into a mountain or whatever. We have to be seeds and really pop up and demand demand for our neighbors, for ourselves, for our family, for our future families, and for generations to come, what we want our future to be. So whether it's signing on to the Agenda for a Thriving South or getting involved in your local union, getting involved in any type of organizing to make sure that we're pushing together, because we can't afford not to. We absolutely can't. So thanks so much for the time and the space to talk about this. And thanks so much for everything that you all are doing on the show. I really appreciate you all.
Thanks again, Jasmine. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
All right, that was Jasmine Payne-Patterson, Senior State Policy Strategist for the Economic Policy Institute. You can learn more at epi.org. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.